This is Honest to God, a production of the Quest Atlanta's Catholic Radio. I'm super pumped to be here. We are rocking and rolling with a lot of really familiar faces. We got classics, OGs in the house, like AG, Justin, and Patrick. And we got young veterans, newly on the show, like Jean-Marco, who's killing it over there. And I did hear off air that he was single. I'm just throwing that out there if anybody's listening. Hey, that could be a thing. Who knows? Like that little clip right there could be a total game changer down the road. I don't want to brag. I have this a true story. I've got like a half dozen people that I've set up in my life. I was saying off air a minute ago that if my dream job would be a Catholic version of the Jewish matchmaker from Fiddler on the Roof. And so this one girl, right? She went, so this is indirect. She went to a college that I was like, you should really check out this college. She ends up going there. Her brother follows her, meets his wife. They get married. That counts as one. Then his brother, next brother, so the girl's other brother, meets his wife at his wedding reception. That counts as two. Okay. Then I've got a bunch of others that I can go down that are a little more direct, but I think it's cool. I'm proud of that. And every time I see their children, I remind them that I'm the reason they exist, and they don't know who I am or what I'm talking about. It's very uncomfortable. I don't actually do that. That's a joke. But anyway, really excited to be here. You guys are going to kill it. We're going to be talking about St. Patrick's today on St. Patrick's Day. We're pretty darn close.
Yeah, pretty darn
close.
Right
up on it.
Yeah.
What day is St. Patrick's Day, Madeline?
March 17th.
March 17th.
Right. March 17th, which is a Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday this year.
Yeah, That's fantastic. So, yeah, I'm actually really excited about it. I got a lot of St. Patrick's connections that I'm going to get into here in a minute. But before we do any of that, we got to pray. Jean-Marco, you did it last time. You killed it. But I'd like to give somebody else a chance if we got any volunteers.
Absolutely.
Anybody?
I can do a quick one.
Hey, there you go.
In the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit, consoler, Spirit of truth, present in all places and filling all things, the treasury of blessings and giver of life, come and dwell in us and cleanse us of all stain and save our souls, O good one. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Solid. Was that a rote prayer? I didn't know that one.
It's from the Trisagion prayers, yeah.
From the what?
Trisagion.
Tell me what that means. That's cool.
Yeah. It's almost like prayers to prepare for prayer. So it's one of the prayers within the Trisagion.
It's pretty good. Solid. I'm not going to grade it because I was specifically not to grade it. But if I were to grade it independently, solid. I'd say 91. I'll give you 91. Yeah. If you didn't tell me that it was a rote prayer, it would go a little higher. But all right. Everybody does know one fun fact. I'll start with fun fact today because I don't know if I've said this fun fact on air. It's been a few months now. I might have, but if I haven't, it's still fun. My wife just had my 5th daughter. 1 son, 5 daughters. Her name is Josephine. She's beautiful and wonderful and pink and friendly. She already likes me better than my 2-year-old does, which is weird because like the 2-year-old really just likes 2 people. She likes her mom, and she likes her oldest brother, Henry, which is precious, right? She wakes up at night, and she's scared, and she goes into his room. But for some reason, she's still, everyone else, including me, lots of side eyes. And this baby is making up for it, because this baby's very, very snuggly and very fun. So praise be to God. All right. You got one for us, AG?
Sure. I have eaten haggis before.
It's like stomach,
Scotland,
right?
Yeah.
Sheep stomach?
I had to forget that information in order to ingest the haggis.
Right.
It was bad. It was pretty good. It was alright.
Really good.
I feel like haggis is one of those things that's like a local delicacy that locals don't eat at all. It's just like a funny thing.
I don't know if I would eat it all the time. Like
Yeah.
it's definitely, I didn't know what the texture was going to be like, and then I ate it and I was like, I guess imagining the ingredients, that is the texture that would make when cooked in that way. So
I mean, I feel like you probably wouldn't eat. I mean, you wouldn't eat all the time. It's hard. There's not a whole lot of stomach in a sheep, right? You got to get to the stomach and then do whatever it is you do to the stomach.
It felt like survival food.
But you got to. I mean, yeah. You're in Scotland. You got to eat haggis.
You have to do that. Yeah.
All right.
I think I tried 3 different haggis while we were in Edinburgh and the area roundabout. Really good. And I believe it's the sheep stomach, and then you stuff it full of oats and suet and mincemeat.
Things we wouldn't do here in the United States.
Yeah.
we would never be able to come up with that concoction.
I mean, my mom, when she's British, and when she lived here with my dad 8-9 years, beginning of their marriage, she said her and another British friend had to go to a butcher and kind of be like, do you know what suet is? please give us suet, like bargaining for it.
What is suet? I don't know what suet is.
It's kind of a specific, I'm going to get this wrong, a specific portion of animal fat.
Okay.
I don't know which part of the animal's fat. But you need it for things like haggis and also Christmas pudding.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, traditional one. Other things too that I can't remember. But my fun fact was going to be another one that I looked up with the help of your favorite browser. St. Patrick's birth name was Maewyn Succat. It was, they think, a Welsh name because he was most likely born in Wales or at least in Britain. It was later he adopted Patricius Patrick.
That's a
which
really
I
good
learned
fun
tonight.
fact. How topical, Justin. I love it. All right, Patrick, what's your fun fact?
I'm going to continue with the theme of like foods we've ate, but
I like it.
growing up, it's funny, growing up, I ate a lot of Polish cuisine, like blood sausage and like soup made from cow intestines and stuff, and never knew anything, and I loved it. And later when I found out, I remember like eating the blood sausage or something, and it came up that it's blood sausage, and I was like, that is gross but delicious at the same time. And to this day, I will still eat it regardless of my knowing these things.
I had some phenomenal blood pudding when I was in Ireland, in Cork, at a friend of mine's mom's house, and she made us blood pudding. It was just part of their normal sort of breakfast, whatever. It was great. I got halfway through it, and then there's like, this blood pudding. I'm like, oh, yeah, you can kind of, okay, I'm kind of picking that up now, but it was good. I've got a pretty strong stomach for weird stuff. I have a long history of eating weird things just because, I don't know, I want to be able to say I ate the weird thing, right? I think that's cool. What about you, John Mark? You got a weird thing that you've eaten, fun fact?
Weird thing that I've eaten. We were talking a little bit about the ink, the squid ink pasta.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite meals. Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
It's delicious.
Were we talking on air about that?
No, it's off
Last
air.
episode? Oh, it was so good. Big
Yeah.
shout out to Five Church Midtown. I was there yesterday, and I forget the exact name, but it's squid ink, pasta soaked in it, and then there was crab meat in it, and it will set you free. They offer it spicy or mild, and I said, like as spicy as you can get it, and then they gave me a big bowl of spice, and I go, oh my goodness, it was amazing. Madeline, you got a fun fact today?
I'll go on theme with St. Patrick. All of the facts that I know about St. Patrick came from the animated CCC video. Did y'all ever watch those?
I
Like
know
the
exactly
saint
what you're talking
videos?
about. Yes.
Yeah, we had like St. Bernadette, St. Patrick. We had like the Fatima.
Right.
But all of the information about St. Patrick is from that video or that movie.
Can you give us one St. Patrick fact from that movie?
Yeah.
Is there VeggieTales, St. Patrick? Probably
I
not.
don't think
Probably.
there
You know the
is.
cucumber.
What?
I
mean,
know
that's
there's.
him.
Really?
Is
Oh.
I know there's a St. Nicholas one. I don't know if there's a St. Patrick one.
Yeah, I don't know. I could. He was
Catholic.
yeah, he was
Yeah,
Catholic.
right.
Yeah, yeah, he
That's
was.
really good.
Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
you'll learn more about the facts later in the video.
No, that was great. Actually, we're actually going to cut it right there. That was
That's all you
perfect.
need
Thanks
to know
for
about
watching.
him,
Thanks for watching. I'm a big St. Patrick fan. I was just saying in there, my baby who was recently born, Josephine, was gonna be Patrick when she was gonna be a boy, because statistically speaking, after 4 girls in a row, how could it possibly not be a boy? Which, for the record, I'm not like I knew really having another boy. I just was kind of expecting. I was like, all right, come on, it's about time. I'm gonna have a boy at some point. And she was gonna be a Patrick. My dad is a Patrick. He's a John Patrick, and he was named after St. Patrick. My grandmother, little 4'11" Irish gal, met my gigantic, like 6'8" big grandfather in World War II, and she was Catholic. He was like a backwoods Baptist from Georgia, and they fell in love. She was a nurse on a ship, and he was in the Navy, and they fell in love. They got married, and she basically said, I'm not going to marry you if you're not Catholic. He converted. Up until the day that they got married, his mother tried to convince him not to be Catholic and not to marry this Catholic girl. And he said, no, I'm going to do it. Like literally the way that, at least I've heard the story, it was in the narthex of the church. His mother's like begging him in his tuxedo not to do this, right? You're going to go to hell. My grandchildren are going to go to hell, right? So he marries this girl, their oldest son, they named Patrick, because she was Irish after St. Patrick. And on my great-grandmother, right, my grandfather's mother, who tried to convince him not to marry her because she was Catholic, on her deathbed, she converted to the Catholic faith. She received confession, communion, last rites, bada bing, bada boom, and died.
Wow.
Come on. Isn't that
God
great?
bless.
Isn't that
That's
great?
wild.
It's a cool story. So that's my St. Patrick's connection. I'm a big fan. Were you named after St. Patrick, Patrick?
I'll say yes.
What's the story behind your name?
Well, from my understanding, my mom had a really good friend named Patrick, and she liked the name, so she named me Patrick.
Oh, great. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm a fan, and it's coming back. A lot of those names are coming back.
Yeah.
I named my kid Henry. I'm a Henry. My great grandfather was a Henry. I got a lot of Henrys going on. We've earned Henry, right? I named my son Henry. There's 8 kids in the school named Henry. I never met another Henry in my life other than my grandfather until I sent my kid to this school. Yeah, it's a great school. So I would love to get into sort of the history of St. Patrick. I want to talk a lot about St. Patrick's Day itself. I feel like there's a lot to unpack there, and how that's one of those, like we were talking about the last episode, one of those sort of cultural Catholic things that has kind of been secularized in a way, but I actually think it's a really great opportunity in a lot of ways to say, like, no, this is there's a reason that we're celebrating this. But I want to talk about St. Patrick the man first, and anyone's welcome to chime in, but literally the first time I ever met John Marco, which was a solid hour and a half ago, he was reading a book about St. Patrick. So I'd love to kick it off with you, John Marco.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you kind of already touched on it a little bit. St. Patrick's original name is not St. Patrick. There's records of Maywin. There's records of Suket. There's a lot of different things. We're not really sure because he himself never references himself anything other than Patrick. And the name Patrick was actually given to him allegedly by Saint Pope Celestine I, and it means father of your people.
Oh, I was literally about to say, Justin, you're our etymologist. What does it mean? So it means patriarch, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Patriarch, father of your people. And he was a missionary bishop. He was originally from somewhere in Britain, maybe Scotland.
In Roman Britain?
Britannia, yeah.
Do you have a rough year? I don't know.
I believe it was he was born in the late 4th century, so 380 to 390.
Not a great time to be Roman.
Yeah.
Things are
and
about to get rough.
Died the late 460s to 490. So the latest account, he would be died. He was 100 and some,
Right.
100 and change.
No, we're rolling with it. I love those. Those stories.
Yeah. But he was born in. We are not really sure where. Some even say maybe in Brittany, in modern day France. So
right.
Could be from anywhere, honestly. But what we do know about him comes from letters that he wrote. 2 letters. First is the Confessio of St. Patrick. That was a letter he wrote defending himself against some allegation.
Okay.
And it worked because we don't know what that allegation is.
Yeah, great.
And the second one was a letter of excommunication that he sent to a general from Britain that was attacking Ireland. His name's Caroticus.
Okay.
And so it was through those letters that we know a good bit about him.
So I want to talk a little bit about the fact how we have these 2 ideas, right? There's the historical figure who did exist, and there's a record of him existing, and then there's this sort of mythological figure. And I want to talk about how I don't care that they blend together and we don't know where one starts and when the other one doesn't. I teach an ancient history course, and we read Herodotus. And if you want to read Herodotus and you want to glean specific historical facts from Herodotus, you're a nerd. Don't do that, right? That's not fun. This is the story. This is the story that the people at the time accepted as true, right? Going on for hundreds of years. And you're right. It's probably not all exactly perfectly scientifically accurate. And who cares? It is a useful story, and it is good for its purpose, regardless. And there's going to be a lot of history tied up in there, and then there's going to be a lot of legend, and there's going to be a lot of sort of a combination of both. And just because the facts don't line up doesn't make the legend not true. I know that sounds weird, but here's what I want to say in that regard. And you're big into all this kind of stuff. I feel like you're right. Right. I use this analogy when talking about ancient history with the kids, or when we're talking about the Iliad or the Odyssey or something like that, right? I say, or even, right, and I can say this and be a Catholic in good standing. I'm not a heretic when I say this, right? Even people who view Genesis as having a lot of allegory, right? I can say that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. That's true. That's correct. But it's not, right? It's not scientifically factually accurate. Sun's not rising. The earth is spinning. It appears to us to rise over here and set over here. It's not, right? But it's still true for me to say that. And that's how I want to sort of go into this story of St. Patrick. And we can talk a little bit about, well, this is probably what they meant. If we're talking about something like chasing the snakes out of Ireland or something like that, that's great. But I don't want this to be some big historical deep dive into parsing out what is that, like, actually, that doesn't mean that, right? We're not doing that.
Yeah, I think it's important what you're saying. The medieval cosmology is I think one of the most fascinating things, and it's basically how they told story. And the way they told story was basically taking all the facts and details that we're talking about it and compressing them in a way we're able to understand. So that's why most people will know the story of Jonah and the whale, for example, from the Bible, more than they might remember that on 1776 the Declaration of Independence was signed, right? Yeah. Because that condensation of those facts to that particular thing holds more meaning than just an abstract fact,
right,
about something. And so it's important of what you just said of trying to, I guess, bring a more medieval mind to this and recognizing that these things are true. And if you're looking at the facts, maybe you've been reading too much Descartes.
Dude,
absolutely.
I'm gonna use that line way too often. Yeah. If anybody's ever read Mark Twain's Joan of Arc, it's actually considered one of the seminal historical works on Joan of Arc. Mark Twain said is one of his greatest works. A lot of people haven't heard of it, right? It's as true and as accurate a story as you could possibly get. And the first chapter is all about fairies that live in the woods. He's like, nope, that seems to be what people are saying when I'm getting about that. And that's great. And that's fantastic.
I think we need more myths. I think we need, I tried to read all of Edith Hamilton's mythology before we went to Greece. And oh my gosh, I forgot so much about it. So actually going and seeing things in Greece and be like, oh, that's what they're talking about. Oh, it's so crazy to see temples and structures and things that they were talking about. Did I think the gods were in there? No, I don't think the gods were in there, but they were fighting and they were battling and it was right there, and it's really cool.
Yeah, it's super cool. And I think I gave a talk right around Halloween. Was it at KSU? No, maybe not, but it was on re-enchantment. It was about how the medievals had a much better understanding of reality because they weren't so desperate to make everything empirical and materialistic, because we don't live in a world that is just material, right? And empiricists, right? We shouldn't break down the world that way. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, ironically, the medieval world is kind of coming back to us, whether we like it or not, in a weird sense. But to go to St. Patrick, I think a little bit of context is also important in that time of our Christianity is still fairly young at that time, and so obviously he was in a way a spreader of the gospel to that island, to the Irish people, and so you have a lot of stories intertwining between the pagan Druidic tribes that existed there and you can say the Christian mythology intertwining together, and so in Ireland, you have all these enchanted stories of Ireland. There's we've discussed this before in a previous episode, there's an Irish mermaid saint called Saint Liban, right? And it makes us uncomfortable, but, so you have this mermaid saint, you have these mythologies and stuff about St. Patrick's, and it's just kind of the world that they were living in. Yeah. And so there's a lot of conversion happening and things like that. So it's important to think about these contexts as we're thinking about who St. Patrick was and how he's interacting with the land that he was trying to convert, right? And so when you're thinking about something like he chased the snakes out of Ireland, if you're thinking about biological snakes, you're already on the wrong plane of thinking. And, you can think of serpents as the pagans, sin, whatever. Those are the serpents that are being cast out in that manner. And it doesn't mean that it's less important because it's not scientifically accurate, I guess is a concept.
And I'm glad what you said about putting it all in context, because when did you say St. Patrick was born?
380, 390.
Okay, so what, Edict of Milan was in the 330s, right, where Christianity is now legal. So we're talking 50 years after you would no longer get tortured to death for being Christian is when this guy comes on the scene. And is it Theodorus who makes it the state religion of the Roman Empire? Somebody help me out there. I think so. But anyway, I'm not sure I'm not sure the year on that one, but we're at a very young stage of Christianity spreading rapidly and spreading into pagan everywhere else.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I guess that's a good kind of scene setter. Because
this is pre-schism too, right?
Pre-schism,
So like there's no Eastern Orthodox and Catholic. It was all just one faith too.
Christian church.
Yeah.
It's one of the few. I shouldn't say few. There's quite a bit, but it is one of like the few saints later on that both the Orthodox and the Catholics share before the split.
Yeah.
So they have these legends in the same manner that we do.
Yeah.
Right.
I think also Anglicans have St. Patrick.
They do. I was
Yeah.
going to say, when it comes to a lot of these pre-schism saints, there's this kind of unspoken understanding in, I think, a lot of Protestant circles. I don't know about all, but a lot of Protestant circles, being the resident Protestant, honest to God,
we appreciate you.
that these are, like, quote-unquote, allowed for us,
Oh, that's
even if
interesting.
you're not going to ascribe to post-schism saints. And plenty of Protestants do. Like, why not? Like, we're all brothers and sisters, and we have a huge history that Protestants don't often take enough advantage of. But thinking about the story of St. Patrick some more, and alongside that context, I think the story, the myth, the legend is partly why he's so important, because he's formed an integral part of certainly Celtic Catholic culture, of Irish and Celtic culture the world over. They dyed the river in Savannah green, and you can probably tie that back to St. Patrick without too much effort. Not that I can do it, but yeah, and it's because we have this story we can tell, right, about this person who, has some based on real life events kind of connection and grit to ground it too. I mean, yeah.
And I think those cultural things are like important. Like, I don't think it's always about like having to be such a perfect Catholic, or it has to look a certain way. Like, I think those cultural things, I think we lose out a lot of that as American Christians, because it's all a mishmash of a bunch of different cultures. Whereas like you go to other countries and it's like, oh, they practice it this way, and these are the aspects of this religion that they,
well,
they
especially
really
in the South as Catholics, where we're looking around and
we're
saying,
like, oh my gosh, you're Catholic, that's so cool. I do. And we're the only two people in the room. Like, we had a conversation about this a little while ago about like, he was like, do you ever like worry about like meeting like other like Catholics? And I'm like, no, I'm just excited there is another Catholic. I'm just excited there's somebody else I could talk to about this. So I think that like the cultural stuff, like, we don't really appreciate necessarily as much in the U.S.
No, I totally agree.
I think there's also the U.S., I think, uniquely within the Catholic space kind of suffers from this of Protestantization of certain thought processes of our faith, in terms of, I've seen people like point at something and say like, oh, that's pagan, like the way the Protestants argue those things, but then you can easily then take that argument and say like, well, pagans also shake hands, so like, are we doing a pagan practice?
You hear a lot about that around the major holidays too.
Exactly.
But
but it's to say that the early church, the only reason we know these pagan stories in the first place is because the early church saved them, because pagans didn't write any of this stuff down, right? This was all oral tradition, and it wasn't until Christians arrived that these stories were saved. And you have to think about, they had to have seen something valuable in those stories to keep them, and also, when they converted cultures, they allowed them to keep those traditions, with the exception of like keeping the Lord's commandments within keeping those traditions, but also everything is now re-geared towards God.
Which is a beautiful irony that I always think about every time, like, sort of neo-paganist, whatever comes up. I'm like, the only reason this exists is because a bunch of Catholic monks wrote it down and preserved it for 2,000 years. Yeah.
So that's also to say also that we should be careful when looking at stories like St. Patrick and stuff like that, and you see certain practices. Once again, Europe kind of grew up with these, so to them it's kind of natural, but not to just be like, oh, like, that's pagan. Like, what do you even mean by saying like that? Like, you're allowed to have like a feast of celebrating an apple orchard festival without saying like it's pagan, right? Even though that's kind of where it came from.
I like that. Pagans shook hands too. Yeah.
I think we've lost so much like whimsy, like just being whimsical, being mysterious, whether that's in our society or in our liturgy as well. Like there's so many lights. There's so much like I like to squint at the icons that are on the ceiling.
Yeah.
You know, I like that there's some kind of shroud of mystery. You know, and I think that's so true with St. Patrick. Like I think people are too quick to disregard the traditions, disregard those stories, because why are they there? It's like the same way we drew dragons on the maps in medieval Europe. It's to symbolize something. It's to symbolize danger. And I think with St. Patrick, it's whether or not all of these stories are 100% factual, it's to symbolize what a good man he was and what an impact he did have on Ireland.
Yeah, 100%. It is amazing to me the damage that the scientific revolution and the Enlightenment had on our understanding of reality. And whereas we all often think, like I used to teach a European history course, and I would never call the Enlightenment. I would say you need to know this period is called the Enlightenment. We're calling it the Endarkenment because it's snuffing out, right, the lights that were lit all over the Western world, right, by Jesus Christ and the Catholic Church. And it's an attempt to snuff those out and say, no, actually, it's all just dirt and atoms that made everything. Stop thinking about all these good, true, beautiful things that aren't physical. So after we take a break, I want to come back and I want to really sort of go through what we know and what we understand about St. Patrick, both from a historical standpoint and this legendary, larger than life figure who I don't think we can overemphasize the impact that he had on Western civilization by the conversion of the Irish. I might be a little biased. Melanie, you got any last minute thoughts before we close her out?
Last year I went to the St. Patrick's Day parade in Pittsburgh.
Heck yeah. Yes. And I do want to talk about some of that stuff too. I want to talk about my dad's St. Patrick's Day Festival. I want to talk about the parades and all of that stuff and get into it. But we're gonna have to take a break first. So we will be right back, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This is the Honest to God approach to the quest, Atlanta's Catholic. We are back. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This is Honest to God approach to the quest, Atlanta's Catholic Radio. We're still rocking and rolling. We got AG. We got Justin. We got John Marco. We got Patrick. Pretty great. Today we're talking about St. Patrick. So it's pretty good. I want to just right out of the gate turn it over to you, John Marco, our resident St. Patrick expert, and just give us sort of the, in brief, the synopsis, the plot summary of the life of St. Patrick. Would you mind?
Yeah, of course.
That'd be awesome.
So basically, St. Patrick, born in somewhere in Britannia during the later end of the Roman Empire. He grew up with pretty wealthy. He grew up with a father who was a deacon in the church, and also a decurion in the Roman government. So very high status. Sure. They had a villa. They had probably servants. They had and he was in line to become just this strong, probably military man in the Roman Empire, and he writes himself in his Confessio that he didn't know God at this time. He did not really believe in God. It wasn't, even though his father was a deacon, it was very cultural. And like you said before, this the Christianity is kind of new to the Roman Empire. Sure. It's still fresh. So even if you are Catholic, you're not exactly converted fully. Yeah. And so he didn't believe. And when he was around 16 years old, these Irish pirates came, sacked their villa.
That sounds like the most fun kind of pirate. Yeah, I'm sure it's not fun, but it sounds fun.
Yeah, pretty terrible what happened to them. But yeah, they sacked their town and took Patrick as a slave. His family, his parents were able to escape, but he wasn't. He was taken to Ireland with several other people. And he was sold into slavery, and he was in slavery in Ireland for 7 years. And it was in this time he writes, which I love St. Patrick so much for this, because he looks back at his suffering in such a beautiful light. He's like, yeah, it was the best years of my life. It was, all he did was tend sheep and pray. Okay. And he found God in this solitude, in this slavery, in this desert, that he was put into.
And Ireland at this point was totally pagan?
Yes,
right?
entirely
Outside of the
pagan.
Roman Empire,
Nope.
hadn't okay.
No, they had tried first with military conquest, and it didn't work. They just couldn't. And at this point, the Roman Empire is going downhill, so the military's, we're not going to waste our money on trying to conquer this place. And a little later, there were some missionary efforts, which I'll get to. But basically, yeah, he is in slavery for this time. And he becomes so infatuated with God and Christ that he actually was nicknamed Holy Boy by the slaves and by those people around him. He allegedly evangelized the children of his slave owner.
Right.
And yeah, he was just basically preaching in the solitude of this place. And then he receives a vision, and this is all his accounts. This is all by from what we can.
And we're gonna put those in the show notes. It's Confessio, it's Patrick's Confessio, and what's the other source?
The other source is the letter to Coroticus.
Okay.
Yeah, and both of these were way later in his life, almost at his death. But he gets a vision, and for an angel that told him that it is good that you are fasting. You will soon be delivered from your slavery. Mm-hmm. And then shortly after that, he gets another vision. The angel tells him to go on this boat, leave right now. There's a boat waiting for you. He gets there. The men at first turn him away, but then he prays more, and then they come back and are like, you know what? Just do whatever you can on the boat, and that's your rite of passage. And so he gets on the boat, and these are all pagans on this boat. Mm-hmm. They go to Britain, and they land. They're not really sure where they are. They kind of wander for a few days, and he makes it very known that he's Christian, and he tries to evangelize them. They're not really having it, but at some point they run out of food, and they turn to Patrick and they say, "Well, you've been talking about your God this whole time. Like, can you tell him to get us some food?" And he says, "If you convert right now and say you're Christian, he will feed us. He will appear to us. He will not abandon us." Mm-hmm. And right then, there was a flock of pigs, wild pigs, that just stopped in their tracks on the road. And they slaughtered the pigs. They were able to eat it. And from there, they started to confess in God.
Wow.
And this was kind of the
cool.
first, just throughout this story, Patrick just keeps wanting to evangelize these pagans. Mm-hmm. He eventually makes it back to his family in Britain. And they beg him to stay and never leave them again. And he realizes like his vocation as a priest. He becomes a priest, and he's in the works of becoming a bishop when he starts getting visions from the children of Ireland. Okay. Calling out to him to save them.
Are these the children that he preached to as a boy?
Yes.
Okay.
And so and it's also understood as like all of Ireland. Yeah. Like and they were calling out to Patrick to save them. And so he's becoming a bishop with the intent of going to be a missionary there. There were Christian missions in Ireland. They were all getting slaughtered. No one was paying attention to them. It just didn't seem like it was working. Okay. So he goes to Rome, talks to the Pope Celestine, Saint Pope Celestine, and that's where he gets his name, Patrick. He tells him, "You will be known as Patrick, the father of your people, and you shall go and evangelize this country," which is really interesting. He mentions several times in his works the event like Christianity will spread to the ends of the world. Mm-hmm. And at this point, the Romans believe this is the end of the world. Like there's nothing past Ireland. This is the last like little piece of land. Sure. They don't know about the Americas. So for them, it's like, this is it. Like this is Christianity reaching the ends of the earth. And so Patrick, this is his mission, to go back and evangelize the pagans. And he does so. He goes to Ireland. He lands there with a couple of the old crew that was trying to evangelize, and it's literally this whimsical adventure straight out of like Tolkien, just like going around and just this band of adventurers that are evangelizing town to town, and these druids, the druidic government at the time was like, well, this is a threat. Like people are converting. This guy's doing miracles. We're not really sure what's going on, and they start trying to attack him, and long story short, he basically converts the entire country without any military action.
My favorite historical trope. I mean, trope is in like a, something that happens a lot, not saying something that's not real, is when pagan priests go up against like Christian missionaries, Catholic missionaries, and just get wrecked over and over and over again. It's really fun.
Yeah.
You tell me a good story about Thor's sacred grove being cut down or what, like I'm all about it.
Yeah,
Super cool.
I think I'll say one of my favorite ones of that is, and kind of we'll go into the creative ways of evangelizing that St. Patrick goes into it. One of my favorite stories of that is when St. Patrick hears that these Druids are trying to hold this basically mega festival. They're trying to like save their culture and like, all right, we're gonna fight the Christians that are coming into our country. We're gonna revitalize this pagan culture, this Druidic culture. We're gonna have this giant feast on this spring equinox, which that year happened to fall on Easter.
Hey.
And so Patrick hears this, and instead of like being afraid, he's like, oh, perfect. I get to talk to all the Druidic people at once, actually.
Right.
I just show up. And part of their ritual was to take out all of the bonfires in the kingdom. And the Druidic bonfire in the middle of the country, where all the witches and the Druids were, was going to be the central point, and then they would light throughout the whole country.
Sure.
So St. Patrick goes on a mountain. I forget what the hill's name is, but it's this hill, and he lights the Paschal fire there in a protest, and also celebrating the first Easter in Ireland.
Right.
And as this kind of just this tense moment, he thinks he's going to get martyred because he's like, there's no way I'm making it out of this. He writes this long prayer called the breastplate prayer of St. Patrick. I recommend. It's my favorite prayer. I say it every morning, of just protection. And and so when he gets captured, in this, because everything I've said this has happened over like decades.
Sure.
It's a very slow process. St. Patrick was kidnapped over 12 times. He was sold into slavery again at some point. Made it out again due to visions, and just had thousands of miracles attributed to him, and also had a lot of interaction with saints. And I think this is something I want to touch on is like St. Patrick, one of his biggest virtues that I personally was the reason I made him my patron and I fell in love with him, was his passion for friendship and his friends. And I think he really shows that you can't get to heaven by yourself.
Right.
You need other saintly people around.
Sure.
And just to quickly just run through all the saints that I've found that he's connected to. St. Martin of Tours was a relative of his, a close relative of his mother, and he also went to his monastery to study. St. Germain was his mentor. Of course, I've said Pope St. Celestin. St. Maximus was the bishop that gave him his blessing. St. Columba, and all the ones after this are just people he ordained, because every single Irish priest, bishop, gets their lineage from St. Patrick.
Right.
He evangelized the entire country by himself. St. Columba, St. Ethne and Fedolin, St. Auxilius, St. Iserenius, St. Fache, St. Loman, Gusak, Mel, McCarthan, Brigid, that's also a huge saint in Ireland, Tassac, and he ordained more than 350 bishops.
Wow.
And he suffered so much for the country of Ireland that in some older accounts, he's given the honorary title of martyr, even though he did not die of martyrdom.
How does he die?
He died of old age. Literally just like on the coast of Ireland, just in his own retreat. And Saint Brigid was actually there for his final prayers. Just prayed with him and was present for his last sacraments. And
that's beautiful.
Really like a true gift from God to this amazing saint.
Okay, give it just real quick, and then I want to move away from sort of the historical St. Patrick. But what is there like a really good biography of St. Patrick you would recommend?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, this book I have right here, it's St. Patrick: His Confession and Other Works by Father Neil Xavier O'Donoghue, and it has the two letters that we have of St. Patrick, and it also has a priest's commentary on his life, And also, one of my favorite parts of this book is Saint Pope John Paul II's homily that he gave near Northern Ireland when he went to Ireland, and you talked about St. Patrick, and his biggest thing there was peace. He was a peacemaker. Not once did he fight anyone. There's one story where he prayed and a druid fell out of the sky, but he didn't touch him.
It's the Holy Spirit. You can't. That's not
exactly,
me.
Yeah.
He was not a Saint Nicholas type.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, bam. But no, but yeah, I think that it also has that. It has his novena to him. It has even the mass for his feast day. If you're a priest and you want to celebrate that, or if you just want to read through the mass. I think that's
it is beautiful. Thank you for doing that. Was a really good. That was a really good summary of the life and times of St. Patrick, right? And it's one of those saints that you hear all the time and you think St. Patrick, Ireland, green, shamrock, Father, Son, Holy Spirit on the shamrock. Also a terrible analogy for the Trinity, but we don't have to get into that. I don't know. It's one of those things we keep bringing back these last couple of episodes about cultural Catholicism, right? And how sort of a rediscovery of this, and how I think that I think evangelization in a big way, especially in 2026, is not a rejection of these holidays or these things that have become really secular, but an embrace of them and a willingness to be like, yeah, isn't this great? We're celebrating the fact that because this guy's Catholic, literally because of St. Patrick, right? Somehow I became Catholic down in the middle of nowhere in South Georgia through this long line of and this long little tendril that came down and ended up with me being baptized and eventually coming into the church, right? Because of this guy. So I'm a huge St. Patrick fan. Did you guys celebrate it growing up? Did you celebrate St. Patrick's Day?
I feel like my most memorable St. Patrick's Day, we would celebrate it, but my most memorable was actually when we celebrated St. Patrick's Day. We were with a friend in England, and I drank as much Guinness as I possibly could on St. Patrick's Day.
That sounds like the opposite of a memorable St. Patrick's Day. I'm glad you remember it. It's good.
Yeah, we would celebrate it a little bit. My nan, who's come up in both those episodes now, actually, her father was Irish and Catholic, to my knowledge. But it was probably not until, actually, we always wore green. That never went away.
Pinched. Even in public school in South Georgia, where no one was Catholic, that was a thing, and people were mean about it. I remember second grade, you'd get bruises. Lots of I promise I'm wearing green underwear. I promise. Getting backed into a corner by a bunch of angry 7-year-olds trying to pinch you.
My shoelace is green.
Yeah. So you had to wear green, but it was a long while, I guess adulthood, when Guinness became a big part of it. Yeah. And he was just secularizing it with the brand names. But yeah, that was probably how we celebrated it. And just this sense that I think a lot of folks in this part of the world have this connection to the distant past through usually Irish heritage. But I think St. Patrick's Day is maybe one of the biggest days we have to try and reconnect to that time.
Right.
I think we were talking about it before the break, perhaps. But this idea that America, North America, the United States, seems to assume it has no culture, but only because it doesn't go back and revisit it. There's actually a whole huge, heterogeneity of cultures in this part of the world. And Irish heritage is part of it. That was a bit of a tangent. But
big shout out to the book How the Irish Saved Western Civilization, by the way. Everyone should read that book.
Yes.
Have you read that one? It's fantastic.
And actually, it was recommended by some church friends of Justin's. So,
it's all about how Rome collapses and the monks in the monasteries in Ireland preserve everything that was ever good, true, and beautiful. Not literally, but a significant part of Western civilization. This is probably an awkward time to say this after all the Guinness talk, but this episode of Honest Guys is actually brought to you by Modelo Especial. Grab a cervezas this St. Patrick's Day. All right, sorry. What about you, Patrick? Do you have a St. Patrick's Day? I mean, you said you were named after a friend, but I guess there's got to be some.
Well, I mean, I grew up very culturally Polish more than even though I was born here in the U.S., I was brought up more with the Polish traditions and stuff, and in Poland in general, name days were almost even more important than your birthday.
Yeah.
And so it was celebrated in that way, that it was my name day. So there was cake, presents, things like that. So those usually, and where I grew up in Rockaway, New York, they actually would have the St. Patrick's Day parade usually on my birthday, because they would have it a week before the actual St. Patrick's Day. And so the parade was always on March 4th, which is my birthday. So we would go to the St. Patrick's Day parade today.
That's really cool. St. Patrick's Day parade on Patrick's birthday. Yeah. So my dad, I mentioned before, opened up a pub in 1980 called Pat's Place down in South Georgia, middle of nowhere, Southwest Georgia. My dad is Patrick, goes by Pat. And my father's uncle was a priest, right? A priest down in Florida. And his parents were both born in Ireland. My father's grandparents were right from Ireland. And he came to see my dad right after he opened the bar. He just drove up to see, like, let me see my dad was like 26 years old or something when he opened this bar. Let me see my nephew's place and hang out. He goes in, and one of the first things he said is, you got to have a St. Patrick's Day celebration. This was in February of 1980 when he opened the bar, right? We just celebrated 46 years anniversary of that bar. And my dad was like, really? We're in Americus, Georgia. There's no St. Patrick's Day. Like, that's not a thing here. He's like, it'll be a thing if you have a party. And so a month and some change later, my dad had the first St. Patrick's Day celebration. And to this day, almost a half a century later, it is one of the biggest events in the town. It is standing room only. My dad has to hire a bouncer for the door. And it's a pub. It's not like a bar. There's not liquor there. It's just like he does all the specials and the green beer. And so all my early St. Patrick's Day memories involved going down there, getting there at like 1:30 in the afternoon so that I could like squeeze into a spot and sitting there. And my dad would bring in like Irish dancers. We weren't like culturally Irish at all growing up. We were just down in South Georgia. He would bring in Irish bands that would come and play. He would bring in all these people, buy hundreds of dollars worth of prizes to throw out and get up and tell jokes and to this day, it's one of the biggest events like ever. We try to get down there every year to see it. People come from all over the country who used to live there. They come back for St. Patrick's Day at Pat's Place. It's really fun. If you're ever down there, check it out on your birthday. So that was my experience, but from a totally secular standpoint, right? And it's funny, the juxtaposition, right? We associate St. Patrick's Day with drinking. I even said before the show, right, during Lent, I tend to give up alcohol just to make sure I'm not an alcoholic every year. I try to say, like, I don't drink on Fridays, and I don't drink during Lent, right? But on St. Patrick's Day every year, I always say to my spiritual director, all right, I'm going to go to my dad's place. Like, can I please, like, have a few pints of beer while I'm down there? He says, yeah, you can do that. And so I go down there and I drink beer. I don't drink Guinness. I can't do Guinness. It's too heavy. It puts me to sleep.
I do
I
not
can have one
do
Guinness.
like Bud Light or anything. Don't give me that. I want a nice
No,
Guinness,
God bless you. I think
nice
that's great,
thick
but I
beer.
can't handle it. But I go down and now ever since I sort of like owned my faith, 2 decades ago now, it's just crazy. All of a sudden I'm like, this is the best opportunity ever for evangelization, because one of the best places to evangelize on planet Earth is in a bar after you've had a few drinks. I don't know. Is that true? Have y'all done that? Have y'all had good Jesus conversations in a bar before?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
More than elsewhere, to be honest, especially in the UK, because this loosens people up enough so that they're not so afraid to talk about the death, the taxes, the religion, the politics.
Yeah.
The forbidden topics in many circles.
I went down, I was at Pat's Place years ago with my sister-in-law, who's a sister. She's a nun. She dresses like a nun, right? Because she's a nun. And we were at the bar, and you would have thought that she was the biggest celebrity on planet. Like, everyone was like, I'm going to talk to her next. And like lining up while she's just like sitting there, like drinking water. And just like all these kind of guys hanging out around the bar would just come over and have these like beautiful conversations with her. But it was the same thing, right? Everybody's lips are loose now. And all of a sudden you're like, you clearly are okay talking about Jesus because of what you're wearing. Let's sit down. I think it's beautiful.
There's something really interesting though, that like when we really own our faith, that I feel like we're more scared of talking about it than other people are listening about it. Because I went to the Renaissance Fair a couple of years ago, and I was dressed as a monk, and I had like this cross staff and stuff, and people were walking up to me and asking them to bless their beers and stuff, as as a joke because of my costume. But I'm kind of familiar with it, so I just would go back and I go, in nomine Patri et Filii, and they'd be like, oh crap, you're like the real deal. But it's like an interesting, I had like interesting interactions through it where like when you kind of play the part, even if you're outside of the Renaissance fair and kind of acted it, it's funny how much grace you can see when you do hold, like, you know, you're more fear towards God than you do like speaking about it, I guess. Yeah.
Was that here in Georgia?
Yeah.
In Fairburn?
Yeah.
We might have seen you.
No,
If not, I saw you online.
Yeah,
Like,
we definitely
I'm on
try to go
Facebook.
every year. But I think that's
Love
so true.
Fest.
Like, that's another like thing of like you get people outside of their comfort zone and they're like, oh, actually, I do think religion is kind of cool, and I do actually kind of want to talk about it a little bit. Like, you just have to get them outside of like the normal.
Well, and it's amazing. Like, talk about great opportunities to bring it up that are super lighthearted, right? It's different than Christmas is coming up, I feel like, and you see all this sort of, and I'm not attacking these people at all. I probably had something like this in my, but just see it's almost the combative, right, evangelization of keep using Christmas. And it's like, well, you're attacking me because I said happy holidays or whatever. But when it's a St. Patrick's Day, when it's something that's like, when it's a Renaissance festival, right? And that is, oh, we're all there having fun. Hey, you've got a tonsure and a cross. And then all of a sudden you're like, actually talking about Jesus in a way that's respectful and not like a joking, drunken, whatever. People are into that. People are like, and it's because, right, ultimately, right, not to butcher Augustine, but our hearts are all restless until they rest in Jesus Christ. And so when you have that out, like we're attracted to that, even if we don't realize we're attracted to that. I think that's cool. I love that you do the Renaissance Fair.
I mean, I didn't go last year, and I don't know if I made it the year before that, but I think it's fun. Like, I know this one.
Yeah, but and we're allowed to have fun. Too. I always think that a lot of people think about Catholics like, you guys remember the show Glee?
Mm-hmm.
I've watched one episode of Glee in my life, and in this episode of Glee, there was some singing competition, right? Which I think is an integral part of Glee. And the school that they were competing against was Our Lady of Sorrows. Oh, wow. And they were all standing up singing the most like somber dirge. Everything. And they were making fun, right? They were making fun of Catholics. They were making fun of, I don't know, just sort of being down, Catholic guilt and all that stuff. And it's so funny because my first relationship, like my first real thinking about Catholic stuff, was all like at my dad's bar, surrounded by shamrocks and my ancient, at the time, priest uncle who was there having drinks in his collar, and most people thought it was a joke. And I don't know, there's so much joy in Jesus Christ. There's so much joy in his church, right? There's so much joy in the grace of his sacraments. And I don't know, we shouldn't be ashamed of that. And we should and you can do that in a way that's fun.
Yeah. We like to have fun. We like to party.
Easter people.
Exactly. Yeah. Easter people.
And St. Patrick's Day people.
I think that you bring up a good point with that. Like when you look at how Catholicism came into the U.S. through these like groups of immigrants, whether it's the like more like older ones like Italians or Irish, but also now a lot of Hispanics. Like we see the South. A lot of our parishes are being brought up just because of South American immigrants.
100%.
And and that's something that secular people, Protestants have come up to me and talked to me about is like, these people just look so happy. The Irish look so happy. The Italians look happy. The Hispanics, like especially those who are in their faiths. Yeah. Like you see these parishes, communities just pop in, and it's like,
we're about to have to close it out. But one of my favorite illustrations of that, you guys remember the, no offense, Justin, the Simpsons episode where they Catholic and Protestant heaven. They're playing croquet and whatever, and then Catholic heaven is there's a bunch of people like salsa dancing, and then there's a bunch of Irish guys fighting and singing, and the Italians are doing happy Italian things.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, I do want to throw this out real quick. We'll see if this makes the cut. I know we're over time. Because we talked about it off air, that I want to throw it out there. St. Patrick's Purgatory and Crow Patrick. Check it out. They're awesome pilgrimage options in Ireland. I know a priest who did St. Patrick's Purgatory and said it was phenomenal. I wish we could do another half hour on this, ladies and gentlemen, but unfortunately we are out of time for today. Guys, thanks so much for being here. Ladies and gentlemen at home, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This is Honest to God, a production of AM 1160 The Quest, Atlanta's Catholic Radio. Producer Madeline.
Over and out.
I say over and out.